Good evening. I would like to call to order the October 3rd, 2022 Lake Washington School Board meeting. Let the record reflect that all board members are present with 4 directors in the room and President Siri Bleasner participating remotely. The board values public participation and engagement in the meetings of the board. Board meetings will continue to be live streamed on the Lake Washington School District website. You are always welcome to email any individual board member at boardmembers@lwsd.org. I will now entertain a motion to approve the October 3rd, 2022 agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Director LaLiberty and seconded by Director Stewart to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is public comment. The Board of Directors of Lake Washington School District welcomes the public to the business meetings of the board and encourages community engagement. The board dedicates 30 minutes at these meetings to hear from the public during a public comment period. With the return to in-person meetings, we have updated the process to sign up for public comments. Go to our website at lwsd.org/board/public comments to sign up to participate in public comments by noon on the day of the board meeting. Comments will be offered in the order of sign-up, beginning with speakers in person, followed by virtual, and concluding with written comments as time follows. This evening, we will follow our board policy and dedicate 30 minutes to public comments on the topic of OE 14. We will attempt to hear as many comments as possible in that dedicated time frame, after which we will listen to public comments on other topics. If we run out of time and do not have an opportunity to listen to your public comment, please feel free to submit your comments in writing for the board to read. Finally, we do ask that you keep public comments to 3 minutes. We have the green, yellow, and red lights to help remind you of how much time has passed. When the yellow light appears, you have 1 minute remaining, and when the light turns red, please wrap up and finish your statements. I believe the first public comment tonight will be Lindsay Yoakum.
Sorry.
1 second.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, man. Thank you. May I go? Okay. Good evening. My name is Lindsay Yoakum, and I'm a mother of 2 children in Lake Washington and a former teacher in the district. I'm here tonight to bring your attention to a civil rights issue that concerns students having reasonable access to medically necessary services in public schools. 3 U.S. states have recently passed legislation requiring admittance of private healthcare specialists into the school setting to provide medically necessary treatment required by ADA and Section 504 law. Washington is not one of these states. I'm here to encourage Lake Washington to take their role as equity leaders seriously and work with state legislators to pass similar laws that will benefit not only students in this district, but throughout the state. In the meantime, I encourage Lake Washington to review district policies to make sure they are in compliance with ADA and Section 504. There are children here in Lake Washington that have been prescribed medically necessary services during their school day. To be crystal clear, licensed medical providers in Washington state are prescribing that medical services occur during the school day. These medical services use the natural occurring classroom environment to build skills that impact the long-term independence, access, and choice for their patients. There are children all over Washington state in schools, both public and private, successfully receiving these medical services in their school setting. These services in no way impact the educational services being provided in the classroom, and instead allow children to gain the maximum benefit from both their medical services and their school day. Other states' leadership have pointed out that allowing private healthcare specialists into the school setting benefits teachers, students, and comes at no cost to the school. ADA law clearly states that public schools are required to adjust their policies and practices so people with disabilities can access needed services. Lake Washington blocking access to services for people with disabilities is a clear violation of ADA law and a massive civil rights and equity issue for our community. Current district procedures and practices are forcing parents to choose between needed medical services or school. Families that have the financial resources can afford to pay for a school that does allow the child's private medical services to come on site. Similarly, families with stay-at-home caregivers can afford to pick their child up midday from a Lake Washington school in order to access medical services they so desperately need. Again, having the resources to do this is an advantage many families in our district just do not have. There are models and examples of how to successfully implement medical necessary services in a public school setting. When we look at the precedents set by other school districts and other states, the language, policies, and actions have already been provided and put into place. I'm asking the board, in a commitment to equity, to use these models to create a written policy that clarifies that people with disabilities have a right to access medically necessary services during their school day on school grounds. I'm asking the board to lead with equity. Thank you.
Thank you. And is Fei Jing here this evening? Or Ven Lala?
Good evening. My name is Ven. I am a current junior at Eastlake High School, and during my, while perhaps limited, time at Lake Washington School District, an ostensibly insignificant issue has stood out to me. An issue that leaves me and many of my peers feel unsafe in our hallways. Since September last year, the district has allowed for a school resource officer to roam our halls with a weapon at their hip, under the pretense of creating law enforcement, fostering a positive school climate, crime prevention, and education. Many students doubt these claims, and so does the data. As per the National Education Association in April of 2022, research has shown that SROs do little to reduce on-campus violence, and their presence can actually create higher rates of behavioral incidents and spikes in suspensions, expulsions, and arrests. Many of these issues disproportionately target students of color and those with disabilities as per the UCLA. As a student of color myself, I may attest to the fact that many of us do not believe that our school resource officer creates a positive school climate. Quite the opposite, actually. Instead of putting police officers where police officers should not belong, the funding allocated to the SRO program may be better suited to getting more diverse school mental health professionals. Currently, at Eastlake, our contracted mental health professional is solitary in their efforts. Additionally, many students of color would prefer to discuss issues with mental health counselors whom share a common race or gender with the student. The district needs to reevaluate the jurisdictions given to SROs. A clearer line must be drawn over where students' safety ends and detrimental policing of students begin. That'll be all.
Thank you. And I believe we're moving on to the OE14 public comments. Oh, okay. Wenming Yi.
Good evening. My name is Wenming Yi, and I'm a parent of two 6-year-olds, and they're going to first grade this year. And I want to thank the board for the opportunity for me to speak here. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that there is only 3 minutes, and there is a suggested preparation for the document. I would love to come back in another day, but in regarding to OE14, I just want to give you a perspective, giving a voice to my younger self. So when I I first came to the U.S., I was about 15 years old. Both of my parents did not have a college degree. And I was able to work throughout high school and be able to eventually go to college. And I wasn't actually encouraged to go to college by my parents. So I want to just really give my younger self a voice to, for everyone to think about not every single subgroup, in a particular ethnic subgroup, not everyone necessarily have the kind of resources based on their ethnicity. And I certainly would love to come back on the 17th to prepare a better statement if that is encouraged. And again, once again, I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak here tonight.
Thank you. So we are now going to move to virtual public comment. The first person to speak will be Linda Yang.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hi, Linda. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So so first I want to say, because I'm going to comment on the equity policy, and I want to point out the current district policy development process is not equitable to new immigrants, to people with language barriers. Many of them didn't even know they can participate in the policy development process. And even though they know, the language barrier sometimes prevent them from, even to commenting on the policy. So I just want to point this one out. So I hope the board can take into consideration. Secondly, I want to comment out while developing the equity policy, the district referred to the Equity and Family Engagement Department as a proxy for community engagement. I want to point out they didn't engage with us, and they failed to really, engage with us. So they do not represent the people, like our culture, our interests, or our voice. So we reject them as a proxy, as an engagement with us, and we request the district to proactively inform and engage with us on any district policy development and changes. We're here, our contact information. We just want to be informed and to be part of the process, proactively be engaged. Now on to the OE14. So at the March 19th study session, Superintendent John Holman actually said, if we were to say no disproportionality in our highly capable programs, that means that we are placing a ceiling on a specific subgroup of students essentially. However, in the board-approved interpretation of OE 14.3, is actually said decreasing levels of disproportionate participation in highly capable dual credit choice school. So I'm just wondering why, because the state law actually said the highly capable participation is not entitlement. And we know the choice school is in a lottery system, and taking dual credit is actually, it's a student choice to commit to a rigorous coursework. So we want to get the board to clarify, its plan, how it's planned to decrease the level of disproportionate participation in highly capable dual credit or choice school. We want to make sure the board actually can lay out its plan to assure us that there's no cap will be imposed on Asian students' opportunity in those popular programs. And on to OE 14.4, in the interpretation, the board basically required the district to show proportional representation of participation in programs such as highly capable dual credit choice schools. This effectively is a quota based on population. And we know the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that racial quotas are unconstitutional. And the Washington law actually banned discrimination based on race in public schools. So again, we're seeking the board to clarify its plan or mandate proportional representation of participation in highly capable.
If you could wrap up your comments.
And we also require the board to lay out its plan to assure that Asian students' legal rights to those popular programs are not violated, by the racial quotas, even though it's disguised as, proportional representation. I know the board is going to discuss the OE7's compliance later this evening. So I'm hoping, during that discussion, the board can address those concerns.
Ms. Yang,
Thank you.
if you could wrap up your comments.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is going to be from Alice Chen.
Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Good evening. Hi. I'm a mother of two girls in this school district, which is 7 years and 11 years old. And about the part of decreasing levels of disproportionate participation in some programs in the OE14, that really makes me disappointed. All these programs has very fair admission process now, including test or lottery. Every single students have the equal chance to work for their goals. In our education system, every child has the same label, should be student, not Asian, African, white, or something else. We educate our children, no discrimination, but they are put in an education system of discrimination. Because of their race, they will be treated unfairly by a reason of disproportionate participation. If our school district insists in imposing the racial quotas, please explain it to all the students, looking into their simple, pure, and trust eyes, letting them know they were set for the chances in their whole life at the time of their born. For my children and all the students in our school district, I'd like to request this board to remove all such affirmative action-based language from OE14. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Anki Luo. Is Anki Luo signed in? Okay, we're gonna move on to Li Ping Shi.
Excuse me.
I don't see. That's Linda. I don't see Li Ping. She signed it.
Okay. Next is Jason Zhang. Jason? Okay. Next is Jinling Wei.
No.
And Wenming Huang.
Hi, this is Wenming Huang.
Okay.
I'm a father of a 7 years daughter. Thank you for giving us the opportunity and listen our comments. Yeah, I just have some comments for OE14. I just want to say, please don't discrimination for Asia students. Yeah, look, the OE14 is planned to use the quota for our children based on race, the color for participation in the program. such as highly capital special education. And I don't think the popular program opportunity should base on the race, the color. They should base on the really ability, learning potential. A student who spend like 6 to 8 hours per day for study on them, but another one only spend 1 or 2 hours per day to learn. The results are different. That's reasonable. If given the same result by people force, that's really not equal for the hard work. Yeah, what's the reward for the hard work? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Wei Fu.
Hello, can you hear me?
Not very loud.
Yes.
It's very quiet.
Hello, can you hear me?
That's better. Go for it.
Okay, sorry, not able to get the computer working well. Hi, my name is Wei. I'm a father of 2 daughters. Both are enrolled in Lake Washington School District, elementary school and middle school. I just want to make one point here regarding this OE. Equity is meant for everyone. School district, as far as you know, provides additional care and opportunities to students with special needs. Likewise, I think school district should also provide opportunity or programs to highly capable or gifted kids, regardless of their race, demographic background, or the factors. So we should not look at whatever the level, whether it's decreasing or increasing level of disproportionate by race or demographic participation in these extracurricular or academic programs, such as highly capable, special education, choice school, etc. Instead, we should look at the nature, goal of the program, what we are trying to do or achieve by having this program. And in the meantime, we can look at the opportunities to help other students who are not enrolled or not capable or such capable to enroll into this extracurricular program based on academic merits. So I request the board, while we consider opportunities for those other students who are not able to enroll in this kind of programs, but not to take the opportunities away from these highly capable students who are able to get into these programs based on their hard work and academic merits. So in the end, nothing should be based on the race or demographic factor. So the words I said in the beginning, equity is meant for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ruo Yun Huang. Shuang Zhu. Is Paul Liu signed in?
Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Liu. I have two kids attending Lake Washington School District schools. First, I want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to speak here. Second, I'm a big fan of the efforts of equity and inclusion because I benefit from the efforts as an immigrant who speaks English with a very strong accent. However, I'm very concerned about the indicator of compliance in the section 14.3 and 14.4 of OE 14, which says decreasing levels of disproportionate participation in extracurriculum and academic programs such as highly capable special education, dual credit, choice school, and intervention programs. The problem is all these programs are designed for certain purposes. They are not for everyone by design. For example, special education. We can't say, oh, there are too many students of color in special education. The special education program is based on needs. For the same reason, we can't say that there are too many highly capable students from a certain group. I can go on and on to talk about all the programs. Decreasing the levels of disproportionate participation is a new discrimination. It's not equitable, in my opinion. It's against what the board and the school district is trying very hard to do. In summary, I support the efforts of the board and the school district, but we can't create a new discrimination and a new inequity. Thank you for your hard work.
Thank you. Next, we have Ji Song Wang. Gwen Chen. Gwen, are you ready for your public comment? Okay, we're gonna move on to Chong Wang. Okay, Alan Zhu. We've got a raised hand. Li Ping, if you're ready for your public comment, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for bringing me back in. I apologize for the technical issues earlier. And thanks to the board for offering the opportunity. Being a immigrant coming to this country, and I have to say that academic excellence really is the only path, if not the only path. It's one of the most critical paths for the foreign or immigrants to be able to integrate, be able to contribute to this great country. And limiting certain groups, when we do that, we often know many of them are either immigrant students or students of immigrants. I'm not trying to put any group in a certain category, but we do know there is a heavy proportion there, limiting these groups to be able to contribute to this country. We're only focusing on the academic excellence right now. And don't forget, in this society, there are also other areas students or participants can be excellent in, such as social excellence, communication excellence, or management leadership excellence, or some students, they are excellent in sports, right? So there are many areas here. And in other areas, we're not limiting the participation. Here, we're only pick the academic area. By itself, is not already addressing the subjects equally. And in the meantime, by limiting the skilled students or students with interest in these academic programs, we're actually pulling the overall program credibility or its excellence downward. So by doing so, I'm afraid we're actually not only not achieving the goal of this program, but also going to an opposite direction. So this is my 2 cents to the current proposal, and thanks for letting me voice my my points here.
Thank you. Next, I think we left off at Alan. Is Alan? Okay. Next is Cassie Leon. Cassie? Okay. We're going to move on to Yi Lei Wu.
Yep. Hi. Thank you for giving me a chance to comment. I'm the father of 2 young boys who currently attend Lake Washington School District, and I have great concerns about the indicators of compliance in 14.3 and 14.4. In 14.3, the first indicator of compliance states, decreasing levels of disproportionate participation in extracurricular and academic programs such as highly capable special education, dual credit, choice school, and intervention programs. The language used in this statement is very concerning because it suggested discrimination against minority students based on demographics. I would like to remind the board that the Washington State residents rejected Referendum 88 on November 5th, 2019, which sought to implement affirmative action on the ground of racial discrimination. This board should respect the decision of Washington State residents and follow the law to remove all affirmative action languages from OE 14. Otherwise, the board will be acting against the will of the people and the law. Additionally, in 14.4, indicator of compliance states, proportional representation of participation in programs such as highly capable, special education, dual credit, choice school, and intervention programs. Once again, such language is bound to create preferential treatment to certain racial groups and discriminate against minorities. I would like to once again request the board to remove all such affirmative action-based language from OE 14 and respect people's decision in rejecting the ideologies laid out in Referendum 88. Thank you for listening.
Next, we have Jeffrey Chen.
It's on mute.
Jeffrey, you're on mute.
Sorry. Can you guys hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thanks for allowing me to express my opinion here. I guess as a lot of the parents has already actually declared, we deeply concerned about the what exactly equity means when we discuss education here, right? I noticed that in that proposal, we use a lot of affirmative action words as indicator of the compliance. That was not what we want to see here. The wording including disproportional participation, the wording like proportional representation of the participation is, in another word, saying that there's a tag, right? So we want those things get removed. I want to remind the audience, including the board member here, that last year or a few years ago, we actually rejected the Referendum 88, which basically is saying the same thing, right? I still believe that the affirmative actions only creates the inequity instead of eliminating that. Therefore, I want us to be more conscious about the decision we are making here. We don't want to implement the inequity in the name of equity, I guess. Happy to discuss more if you guys need some written comments from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Po Wu.
They're signed in.
Next, we have Po Wu. Okay. Jessie Zhang.
Hi. Hello, everyone.
We can hear you. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, the board, that giving us the opportunity to speak up. I want to say that we've been in Lake Washington School District, and we've been a resident since 2018, and now I have 2 kids that attend elementary school in the district. So back then, we feel extremely lucky that our district have a program for highly capable students. And I still remember the first time, checking on the website, a district website, and to learn about the selecting criteria. And I'm really happy to see the criteria, which is a current one, and it seems totally fair for everybody. Because personally, I work as a data analyst in an educational testing company, and all my daily work involves developing assessments and processing testing data. We hold our mission seriously, the same as the district, to provide fair and valid assessment. We give same tests to everybody, every test taker, and they should be treated the same. So if we ever found any item that causing different performance across group, whether it's gender or ethnicity, we take that one out from the final score. But we never provide different testing papers or select different criteria for different group. Definitely not for different race as well. So everyone is treated equally. I believe as a school district, I noticed that the mission and the goal for our board of directors is to provide support to every student to help them be prepared for college and global workforce and personal success. And I want to emphasize that it's everyone, and kids simply already perform well should not be left out of consideration. They should not be excluded just because they all work harder already. And the last point of my comment is, I believe as an academic program, no matter it's highly capable program, AP or other advanced choice classes, they should only select candidates based on students' academic performance. So same logic applies to other enrichment curriculums, right? So does any of our school districts select their football teams based on any other criteria other than their performance? I think that should only be select students or athletes based on how well they play and based on their techniques and their performance in games, not their testing scores, right? Because that's a football game. And what about school bands? We never select or try to portion that based on their race. We select people and students who love this activity and who can actually perform well in this. And so I think my bottom line is, as an academic program, they should be selecting based on students' academic performance. Okay, thank you everybody for time.
Thank you. And that is going to wrap our 30 minutes of dedicated time for public comment on the topic of OE14. If you were not able to speak tonight, please feel free to email your written public comment to the board, and we will read the public comments that are submitted. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the October 3rd, 2022 consent agenda. I will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director La Liberty. Dr. Holman, will you poll the board?
Yes, I will. Director La Liberty?
Yes.
Director Stewart?
Yes.
Vice President Choi?
Yes.
Director Carlson?
Yes.
And President Bleasner?
Yes.
Motion carries. Dr. Holman, will you please summarize the donations?
Absolutely. So this evening on the board's agenda, we have just under $20,000 of donations coming in from our community, a source, our PTSA, and then some other private donations coming into the district. As always, we greatly appreciate those donations coming in to help us provide supports and services for our students, programs that we wouldn't be able to provide without these resources. So it's with great appreciation that the board accepts these this evening.
Thank you. The first item on the, the first item on the non-consent agenda this evening is an Equity and Family Engagement Program update. Dr. Holman?
Yes, and as the board recalls, in August, we had Director Pablo Ortega come to a study session, and we started a conversation around the district's administrative equity policy. We also had information to share on an equity and family engagement program update. We spent about an hour and 45 minutes on the first portion of that session, and so we invited Director Ortega back to the board meeting. In particular tonight, since the board will be conducting monitoring on Operational Expectation 14. So Pablo comes to us virtually this evening, and so to provide technical and support on this end, Deputy Superintendent Matt Gillingham is at the podium, and they will tag team the presentation. So Pablo, thank you for being with us this evening, and Matt, I will let you lead us into this.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Pablo. Glad that you're able to join us virtually. We'll see how this goes, and I believe just technically confirming, Pablo, you got your presentation. You'll be able to present it from there. Okay, great. So tonight, what you're going to get is a program review highlighting the work of Director Ortega and the Equity and Family Engagement team. As the board knows, this is a team that has been built out over the past couple of years. You know, one of the things is we actually first really started building this team, it was in the midst of the pandemic, and so much of this team worked virtually for the beginning of the pandemic, providing a lot of the basic needs supports for our students and helping us identify areas in which our practices needed to change pretty quickly. And with Director Ortega coming on board, and now that we're you know, kind of at a different stage in our response, really looking at kind of the service orientation of this team and how it fits within the context of the district. So I'm going to turn it over to Director Ortega, and we'll. Pablo, I'll just let you know if there's any questions or anything that you can't see over here that are coming your way, okay?
That would be great. I'm going to do a little bit of old school here. Can I get a sound check and ensure that I'm heard?
We can hear you.
Perfect. And you should see my title screen, which says Equity and Family Engagement Department Program Overview on the screen.
You're good there as well.
Awesome. I'm smiling very nervously because I'm hoping that technically it works, but thank you for the invitation. I'm actually dialing in from Washington, D.C. at a very awesome conference called Courageous Conversations About Race with my team, but also other district staff. And so just pleased to meet with you. Seems very timely given the professional development that we're all involved with here. I'm the Director of Equity and Family Engagement here for the district, but more importantly, I'm also a parent of a student in the district. And so I'm just, again, just pleased with the ability to speak to you, but also pleased as a parent with the work that we're engaged in. So our department's mission, you can see that there on your screen. I'm not going to read the entire statement to you. What I would like to do is focus in on that statement there in the bottom in orange, where it says, It will take the action of pushing boundaries and decolonizing our policies, processes, curriculum, and mindsets so that we can achieve ultimate freedom from the shackles of a variety of injustices that we, our students, our families, and our communities face daily. And so if we go back to the document that we talked about earlier and some of the parent communication as well, operational expectation 14, that's the why, right? Why it is that we're engaged in this work. But I also want to point out that in the mission and the vision of the district, the words, or the phrase I should say, every student and each student shows up in both of our mission and vision for the district. But the problem is that our results don't reflect high levels of success for each student, nor do they reflect high levels of success for every student. The word there on the mission, speaking on decolonizing, the way that I attribute that is, a system is designed to achieve the outcome it gets. Our system is producing disproportionalities. Our mission is unshackling our system so that, unshackling our system so that our students who are historically marginalized are not maligned or further maligned. This is our vision for the department, for the Equity Family Engagement Department. Again, I won't read the entire vision for you, but I did highlight, we'll call it a juicy nugget. Committed to the legacy work of racial, gender, and ability equity for all and the intersectionality therein, and the power this work has to disrupt the status quo. So I really want to point out by example what we mean by intersectionality and disrupting them. So for example, students who are qualified for multilingualism services, or multilingual students, who qualify for multilingual services are disproportionately referred to special education. Or students, the propensity, for school exclusion or suspension for kids of color, but especially Black males, is also disproportionality that we as a system should disrupt. So we've talked a little bit about the why, and then we can move into the how, right? And so what we want to do is move our students all of our students from surviving to thriving. In order to achieve that, you have to ensure that students have their physiological needs met. So for example, these can be assistance with housing insecurity or food insecurity, and then moving along this continuum to safety and belonging. I'm going to cheat a little bit and say there is safety in belonging, right? And so when your authentic self is seen and validated, it is more likely that students will have higher levels of achievement and self-actualization. Our work, the department's work, the district's work, the system's work, is to advocate for underrepresented families and to ensure that more and more spaces are mirrors for marginalized students, such as through our work with curriculum or affinity spaces. Our team includes, you've already heard a lot about me, and so I'm not going to talk about myself anymore. It includes our teachers on special assignment, Stephanie Jesus Mugli, as well as Damali Wingert Soy. They are responsible for very many things, for example, assisting in curriculum development or designing professional development. Two awesome staff members on the team as well are Catherine Cruz and Naima Webb. They're out there engaging with families, engaging with community partners in order to meet some of the needs that we talked about earlier, whether it is physiological needs or the idea of belonging for our students. Blanca Rivas Lafort is responsible for a program called McKinney Vento that's focused on families and students who are suffering through housing insecurity, And then we have on the team equity and family engagement facilitators that are aligned with our comprehensive high school learning communities. And those are Adana Abakporo, Sergio Barrera Batista, Susan Custer, Beverly DeSono, and Kelly Jacobson. And then the glue for our department and kind of keeps us as a well-oiled machine is our administrative assistant. Her name is Lori Spirey. And so this team is the team that I'm very glad to be a part of. The services that our department provides directly include equitable language access for families, providing internal consultancy for building equity teams, engaging with families, student well-being, professional learning, or especially around the areas of equity, McKinney-Vento, as I mentioned before, and then we also have, through our very generous partners, and I'll name those in a few, are able to provide emergency nutritional support for our students in times of food insecurity. But our department, even if it were to be doubled, we still wouldn't achieve the success that the district, our system, is looking to achieve. And so the work that we do in order to assist our system is to, if we're truly interested in making systemic change, then we have to include each and every part of our district in order to build sustainability. And so that's where the advocacy and partnership comes into play for our department. Whether we are pushing for accountability and transparency, partnering with curriculum, with our curriculum friends, or developing our educators in terms of instructional practices, ensuring student access and academic achievement, pushing for shared leadership and decision-making, as well as partnering with our HR friends on recruitment, retention, and workforce equity. As I mentioned before, as a system, in order for us to achieve this change and have it be sustainable, we all need to be working together. One of our areas of focus is well-being, and there are partnerships that we have with not only departments within our district to help us move closer to ensuring well-being by all students, but we also have affinity groups that we either lead directly, so our team members may have facilitator roles, or we partner with community organizations to provide spaces for students to feel like they belong. Some of these spaces include the Black Gems Group, the Black Room, Asian American Affiliate Group, and Latino groups at various high schools and middle schools, and those are just to name a few. As
Hey,
I mentioned before,
Pablo, can I just, you had a great picture there. Can you, can you go back and talk about the student, the conference?
Yes. So aside from just our, the affinity groups that we either sponsor or facilitate directly, we had an event this past spring called the Student of Color Conference, and that's a picture from the Student of Color Conference. It was our inaugural Student of Color Conference, and so we're looking to do that again in May of 2023. We kind of set ourselves up to disadvantage. We went big and we did a really nice job, and so now the challenge is go bigger and do an even nicer job. Partnered with some of our higher education friends in order to have our students visit college, get that college experience, and see what they could what the future could hold for them. Our community partners came through and they were there to talk to our kids about a variety of resources that are available to them and to their families. You see a lot of, at least the kids with no masks, you see a lot of smiling faces, and it's just a joy to be a part of. So thanks, Matt, for reminding me. I mentioned before, our department is also responsible for McKinney-Vento, and again, this is focused on families who are experienced in students, that is, who are experienced home insecurity. We also work with community partners for kids who are in foster care. For example, Treehouse is one of our partners that focuses on that population of students as well. And just really quickly, the areas of McKinney-Vento that we assist students and families in include transportation, emergency housing if necessary, access to school supplies, assistance with school fees, things of that nature. I just have to say that, I heard Dr. Holman earlier talk about the generosity of our charitable organizations that partner with us, and I would just be remiss to not mention just the monumental task this past fall, not only of the department, but also our community partners that just open their hearts to students and families in needs, especially when it comes to emergency nutritional support. We were able to kind of like a partnership, right? Build on each other's strengths. We have, in the district, that is, we have good information on our families, either through engagement work directly from this department, from our schools, from our school leaders, our teachers, our counselors. We know families that are in need. And so our community partners said, okay, you know the who, and we're experts on being able to work with retailers such as Safeway or QFC in order to be able to connect families in need with these retailers that can assist them. And so we were able to provide over 300 nutrition vouchers for families during prolonged periods of non-attendance, and those include during the Thanksgiving holiday, during the winter break, during spring break, as well as summer break, and we intend to do that this upcoming school year. And so I just want a big shout out to Nourishing Networks, Operation School Bell, as well as our very own Lake Washington Schools Foundation. Again, they saw the need and they responded very generously, and so we thank them. Our department is not necessarily solely responsible for curriculum and instruction, but we are a partner. We're an internal consultant for the folks that are engaged in that work. And our lens or our viewpoint on this is, how can we provide marginalized students with mirrors in all spaces so that they see themselves? And I point back to earlier where I said we want our kids to not survive, or students, I should say, to not only survive but thrive. And so there is safety in belonging, and either through curriculum or through our instructional practices, ensuring that all students see themselves in both of those areas is important to achieve that. Additionally, we also are engaged in that work in order to provide windows for all students, right? So that all students are able to raise their awareness of the environment that they're in and open themselves up to other perspectives and build their skills as global citizens. And as a reminder, many of the public and private industries list the idea of building skills as a global citizen as a premium for employees and leaders. And so we're wanting to ensure that all of our students are prepared to take on those leadership roles. Our department provided professional development in the area of equity based on state mandate that said 7.5 hours of equity, 7.5 hours of social emotional learning should be dedicated in terms of professional development. We were responsible for equity professional development, 7.5 hours during the 21-22 school year. But that doesn't mean that the work is done and that you did equity for a year and now you get to move on to other areas. We'll be moving into social emotional learning, another 7.5 hours during this current school year, the 22-23 school year. But there is a very natural connection between social emotional learning and equity, and so there will be exposure to equity in that professional development as well. And just working with internal partners to make sure that happens. I mentioned a few community organizations that we partnered with to deliver just resources for families that are in need, and our family engagement our family engagement work is just never finished, right? Our families are a very dynamic group, and so we're always looking for new ways to connect with them, whether it's working with Eastside for All, Brazilian Community Services, Promotores, Eastside Colectiva, Indivisible Kirkland, or FABS, amongst many other groups that we look to reach out to. We're always on the hunt for connecting with the community, determining what needs are, and then collaborating with them in order to meet those needs. I apologize for that. I mentioned earlier that an area of focus for our department is equitable language access. So whether we're providing interpretation or translation services through various phone services, or translation and translation services for district and school-based employees through technology such as Parent Square. We also are looking for more ways to ensure that all of our families are connected to Parent Square, are trained on Parent Square and how to use it. And so just look out for more and more of those activities that'll happen at the school level in order to increase that usage of that awesome tool. We also contract with community members that we've either identified ourselves or the community itself has told us, hey, you should really look out for this person. They have an awesome connection with families. They have language ability. And so they are called language and cultural liaisons. We contracted with our Spanish-speaking liaison last year. Her name is Virginia. And now we're on the cusp of contracting with a Portuguese-speaking liaison. Her name is Isbeli, and they're doing big things in our district, especially for those families who are in a language minority. And we're always on the lookout for other needs in terms of language groups that we might be able to fulfill through this contractor role. It looks like that's it, actually. So I open myself up for questions, discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pablo.
Mark?
Thank you. Pablo, could we go back to the page, and I wish I had a number on the page, but I don't, but the curriculum and instruction page. As I try to look at it sideways. Could you elaborate a little bit on the collaboration on ethnic studies curriculum and just tell me a little bit more about that and what stage we're at and where we're going? And it should be self-explanatory, but I'd like to hear a little more about it.
Sure. The Office for Superintendent for Public Instruction asked that all school districts engage in the work of ethnic studies to provide that instruction to students. We are currently in the phase of working with our educators and kind of teaching ourselves in terms of what that could look like at our schools. And so it's very much in a planning phase. I have folks on, as I mentioned earlier, in the department, there are team members in the department who are responsible for curriculum and instruction by name of the teachers on special assignment. And so they're working with teachers, especially teachers in the high school, to just educate ourselves what this could look like and begin to plan what a curriculum might be. So very much in the planning stages for that.
Okay. So this is really, at this point, we're looking at a blending in of ethnic studies into other, to see how we can blend it in with, or or do you foresee a separate curriculum of independent studies, ethnic studies classes, or do you know at this point?
I think the last update that I received is potentially a standalone class at our high schools, but it's, like I said, it's still in the early stages and not fully fleshed out.
Thanks.
Any other questions or
Thank you.
comments? Okay, I was just going to say thank you for the information. It was very informative, and the department is growing so rapidly and taking on so much. It's really exciting to see. Evan?
Sorry, I was a bit late on that. I was wondering if I could just get some additional information under well-being. At least on our version of the slides, we have Annual Student of Color Conference, Spring 2023. If you had any information on that, I'd love to hear it.
I'm so sorry. I missed a little bit of that tail end part of the question. Do you mind repeating the question?
All good. Under well-being, at least in the slides I have, it talks about Annual Student of Color Conference in Spring of 2023. If you have any information on that, I'd love to hear it.
Yes, thank you. We held it at Cascadia College last year, and Cascadia wants to continue partnering with us. And so we will probably hold it there again. last year's keynote speaker was my predecessor, Dr. Gloria Henderson. She did an amazing job, and so again, we kind of set ourselves up for a challenge, having to go bigger this year, and that's okay. We're up for it. So yeah, it'll happen May of 2023. The feedback that we got from students was, you know, I just love mixing it up with students. They tell you all the good, but they also tell you the things that you could have improved upon. And there's some workshops that they really want to see for this upcoming school year. Just to give you an idea, some of the topics that we covered included things such as gender inclusion, LGBTQIA issues, undocumented status or immigration status, things of that nature. And so our students have definitely asked for more of that in addition to other topics. And so, yeah, that's kind of the preview for Student of Color Conference this upcoming school year.
Thank you so much, and I'm excited about all of this work.
Thank you.
Director Stewart.
Oh, one thing I neglected to ask you, Pablo, the ethnic studies, and you said it's a ramping up stage really in planning. Can you give us any kind of a time frame you're looking at this point, or an estimated time frame? It's always so tough on the early side of it, but I thought I'd ask.
Right. No, the hope is for us to have something in place, whether it is a standalone class or as someone mentioned earlier, blended into other areas of other topic areas in schools by the 23-24 school year. So next school year.
President Bleasner.
Thank you. First, thank you so much for the presentation. Very helpful to sort of see where we're at. It's amazing to think how this has grown over the years, and appreciate your leadership in bringing that forward. I do have a question around the equity teams. It was sort of covered, and I know this has been something we've been approaching for a while at the schools. And so wondering sort of what the challenges or strengths that you have seen coming out of those equity teams, and sort of what needs to happen as those get built out.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I engaged with a community member recently regarding building equity teams. And my assessment, and again, this is I'm about a week out from being here a full year, is we have excellence. We have excellence in our district when it comes to building equity teams. And then we have building equity teams that are earlier in their path to ensuring equity for all in their schools. I'm a big fan of if you do less, it's more likely that you'll do it well. And so our ask for schools this year is, one, that you have a building equity team at your school. Two, that there is parent involvement in your building equity team at your school. And we're producing 4 modules of professional development that building equity teams will be able to provide their staff. And so the first module that'll be released within the next 2 weeks is culturally responsive teaching. And that's an area that has been a focus for our district for a few years. And so just revisiting that. Other topics during this school year will also include gender inclusion. And then we'll ask our buildings to also provide us with, what they have noticed as a need in their school, and then we can partner with them to help build that learning. So that is that'll be the goal for the year, is those 3 things that I mentioned before. But then that's an evolutionary step for what next year will be, right? So that's sort of our baseline for this year, and we'll have to grow from there next year as well.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did that answer your question? Okay.
That did. That was actually fabulous to understand where you were going with that for that year, and then where it would go. The only other question I would have around there is, you mentioned parent representation. Has there been thought about student representation, especially at our secondary schools?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That's definitely another evolutionary step. It's very much in the planning stages, this next topic that I'm going to bring up, but this idea of an equity review or equity audit at a school site as well is definitely another area that we're looking to grow into. Probably not for this year or maybe to the tail end of this year as a pilot, but definitely something that we're looking for in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shivani.
You were talking about building equity teams, and I just wanted to add that at least at my school, like STEM, we do have an equity team that basically presents once or twice a year on different like issues involving equity at STEM and throughout the district. And so I think it's definitely something that we can apply to other schools in the district, and I think it's a very cool idea.
I think your idea is a cool idea. Looking at internal experts to see what's going well and trying to replicate that throughout our system. Why reinvent the wheel when we find a model that has worked? So thank you for bringing that up.
Awesome. Any more comments or questions? Okay. Well, thank you, Director Ortega.
And I just want to publicly thank Director Ortega and his team. This is incredibly difficult work. If you think about essentially they are pushing on systems that have been in place for a long time. Those are difficult conversations often to have with their colleagues and their peers. And they're often uncomfortable and they're doing this work really with such amazing passion that I'm constantly inspired by this team and challenged by this team to do well. And so I want to thank Pablo and his team publicly for the great work that they're doing and continuing to do, because it is incredibly challenging and probably the most important work that we get to engage in as educators. Thank you, Pablo.
Thank you, but now I have to thank the board, obviously. Dr. Holman, thank you, Matt, and district leadership for your commitment to this work, because you're right, Matt, it's not easy work, but it's systems work, and all of us will have a hand in ensuring it. So I'm thankful for the commitment.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on for tonight, we will monitor OE14, anti-racism, anti-discrimination, equity, and inclusion in education, one of our 14 operational expectation policies. Through these policies, the board established its values about how the school district is expected to operate and the expressed conditions that must exist as business is conducted. The monitoring reports contain the superintendent's interpretation of policy language, a review of current conditions and monitoring data. The monitoring actions make up part of the board's oversight of the organization and assures the board that its operational standards have been met. Dr. Holman, will you please present a summary of the monitoring report?
Yes, I will. So as the board knows, typically operational expectation monitoring reports don't come alongside with a PowerPoint presentation. I thought it would be important, just given the scope, magnitude, and attention that this board has spent over the last 2 years around the development of this policy. As you know, this is the first monitoring of this report, and so it does come with a bit of a grain of salt, because as the board knows, there's many parts of this policy that through the development and adoption of this policy, the reasonable interpretation and indicators has truly caused additional items for us to start developing as staff. There are data systems to be developed, some processes and procedures to be developed, and so through that work, it really does demonstrate how the board is leading through policy. And so I want to walk through this policy a little bit more deliberately than we typically do for an operational expectation. And so, Vice President Choi, you can kind of make the determination on whether or not you want me to walk through the entire policy presentation that I have, and then we can go back for questions, or if there's questions throughout, I'll let you make that determination.
I think because of the length of the policy, it makes sense to take questions as they come.
Great. And so that's kind of how I've structured the presentation, about 2 slides per policy component. With one kind of referencing some overall information, the second set of either slide or slides providing a bit of interpretation, if you will. And so just at that, I'll pause and we can address any questions at that point. Great, thank you. And so I thought it was important, just since this is a new policy that the board has adopted, originally adopted on September 13th, 2021, with the reasonable interpretation and indicators adopted on August 22nd, 2022, so just a little bit less than 2 months ago. So this is the overarching statement that the board makes around OE14, with some very specific directives to the superintendent, because an operational expectation really is the parameters and the boundaries that the board expects the superintendent and the organization to operate within. Additionally, this policy serves as a set of values that the board identifies, and we continue to work towards those values. And so, with the policy statement, the directive to the superintendent, there are 11 specific policy components. Under each component, there's data that is being driven as is evidence for the board to monitor the compliance with this policy. So that leads into the first component of this policy. 14.1 states, ensure students have an anti-racist, inclusive, equitable, welcoming, and safe school and classroom environment. You can see there on the left, those are the indicators of compliance that the board has adopted. I rated this policy component as not in compliance. A consistent theme you will see for these policy components is that the data that's not available now, the availability of that really will be collected during this school year, and so processes, procedures, data analysis will be conducted during this school year and then reported a year from now in the 23-24 school year as we monitor OE14 next school year. And so just a little bit about 14.1, some of the data. You see that students are consistently reporting lower levels of a sense of belonging between spring 21 and spring 22. And they're consistently reporting lower than nationally normed peer data. It was interesting that Director Ortega tonight, you saw that, I wrote it down actually, the stairs to success. And right in the middle, right after safety, was belonging. And I thought it was interesting that the board leads with a policy component related to this, and the data that's being articulated really does start with that sense of belonging. And Director Ortega mentioned that belonging, it comes after safety, but it's a part of safety. But it also comes before achievement and self-actualization. And so belonging is a key component to student success. And so I just thought it was interesting that he brought that in the room this evening as well. The other piece, elementary level students report a larger decline in a sense of belonging from spring 21 to spring 22 than their secondary peers. As we look at a couple of the tables that are embedded within OE14 as evidence, you can see here, these are our grade 3 through 5 students reporting their sense of belonging on the Panorama survey. As we looked at spring 21 to spring 22, you can see there was overall for the all student group a decline of about 6 points of students reporting favorable sense of belonging. Of note, you can see there's a number of student groups that are reporting higher rates of decline. It's interesting to note that our Black African American students, you can see they had a 6-point difference between the all student group and the reporting in spring 21. They maintained a 6-point difference when reporting in spring 22. You also see that there's other groups such as our 2 or more races, but also our female students reporting a 7-point decline in our grades 3 through 5 students reporting a favorable sense of belonging. When looking at our secondary students, you can see maybe not as significant a decline in the percent of students reporting a favorable sense of belonging, but you also see here that our secondary students are reporting an overall low sense of belonging, which I know has caused great concern for all of our leaders and teachers across the system. And so just to unpack a few pieces here, you can see if I just, looking at a few data elements, our Black African American students that reported on the Panorama survey in spring 21 had the same favorable reporting as the all student group. But then you go to spring 2022, you can see that there was a 9-point decline, significantly greater decline than the all student category. Additionally, of note, you can see here that our students that indicated a gender X, you can see overall the largest decline, but also reporting the lowest favorable sense of belonging as compared to their peers. And so those are just a few indicators and a few of the reasons why this policy component was not rated in compliance.
Thank you, Dr. Holman. Are there any questions or comments about 14.1? Director Laliberty?
We are surveying our students again in the fall of 2022. Is that right? And
Yes, we are.
okay. And that has not yet occurred.
So we do the Panorama 2 times per year.
Right.
And so we are just right now launching the Panorama survey, and then we'll do that again in the spring.
And in the fall of 2021, it would have been, it was in October as well. I'm trying to think through of timing of, so much of this survey results can depend on when it was given. But it will match up timing-wise going forward too, when we do the fall and spring.
And I believe how we'll be reporting in OE14 will be the spring survey results.
Yeah.
So it's year over year spring.
Yeah, that's right.
So while I agree with your sentiment that it depends on the time of year, I think overarching is that our students are reporting, when looking at nationally normed data, a lower sense of belonging than their peers across the country.
That's right. Thank you.
Director Stewart?
Yes, ma'am. As we look at all the negative ones, 2 of them popped out at me that were positive, and I was just curious if we have any idea as to why we have the multilingual learners and we have the Native American, Alaskan Native learners, especially that latter group jumped 12 points up. Do we have any idea why?
Yeah.
How?
These are 2 data points we're looking at, and so there's kind of 2 pieces. One is the number of students within any one of these groups, and so you could have 1 or 2 students reporting differently, and that's going to significantly increase your rates. I think the other piece is, as we start to see a trend over time, that will give us a better indication of, is this a number that consistently stays now at if we think about our American Indian, Alaska Native students, are they consistently reporting that high, or is this a data point that fluctuates?
Yeah. I didn't know if it was perhaps thanks to Mary Wilber's program having an impact or not. It just it struck me as unique.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Evan?
Just as a response to that, this is purely anecdotal, but I do know that referred to as multilingual learners are often more likely to be grouped together due to the service provided to them. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that might also have an effect on that specific data point.
Any other questions or comments? I was just going to say that I think it'd be very useful to have response rates included in this particular data set going forward, because it will help us determine whether or not there are big outliers just because the sample size is small. So it would be useful.
Yeah, and kind of to that point, those comments will be captured in the board's response to this. And so at the end of my presentation, I have some policy considerations for us to think about as well, because this was the first run at writing this policy. This is the first run at monitoring this policy. And so I know there's going to be modifications, changes, kind of data requests to help the board better understand these data. And so those types of comments will help us as we then reconstitute, bring back to the board some suggestions so that next year when we monitor OE14, it's more effective for the board. So thank you.
Oh, we have a question from President Bleasner.
Thank you. So just a quick thing along, just as you're doing this, are you doing each indicator or just each sub-policy?
I'm just doing each sub-policy, knowing that the monitoring report that the board has received has the complete data set. It's also available to the public in board docs under the agenda tab of OE14 monitoring.
Okay, so then the question I had on 14.1, or just what a piece I noticed was that secondary was significantly lower than elementary as well, in regards to those pieces. And as you look at this, and as what we heard from Director Ortega tonight, as you think about these things, are those pieces in place in which to be improving these outcomes or this operational expectation over the next year or two?
And what's interesting about this specific policy component is the board just received results 3. I believe it was the last meeting, which definitely outlined the programs and services related to addressing the social emotional well-being of students. I think if the board would like us to provide a report around any areas that are not in compliance, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, 14.2 is similar to 14.1, but this is about our staff. So it states that ensure staff have an anti-racist, inclusive, equitable, welcoming, and safe work environment. You see the indicators of compliance here. This is one of the few policy components that you'll see is currently rated as in compliance. Even with that in compliance rating, there are still data to be collected during the school year so that reporting in 23-24 can provide evidence for all of the indicators of compliance that the board has adopted. And so 2 pieces that I want to highlight from this area. First is the indicator related to hiring of diverse staff. You can see here, grab table 9 to just recognize the continued diversification of our staff. as we work towards really having a more equitable educational system for our students. You can see that first bullet point, that reporting outside of our racial diversity, we're still trying to determine how do we do that well, do that in compliance with the law. And so that's why the only data you see here around diversity of staff is based on race and ethnicity. And so what are some of those other ways that we can seek additional demographic data? Because I know the board has an interest in understanding from a broader perspective of our staff as they're reporting about 14.2 in really their work environments. You can see here, based on these data, that staff increasingly are more racially and ethnically diverse here in Lake Washington. In terms of retention, you know that operational expectation 4 deals with personnel administration, and so work is being done in that regard around both hiring, recruitment, but also the retention of our staff. And so you can see here, staff retention within 1 year averages about 80%. Staff retention within 3 years averages about 63%. And then one of the things that we continue to grapple with is that good? Finding an appropriate benchmark is important. Also, establishing a trend for Lake Washington staff is also important. And so we have data that we felt was appropriate back about 5 years. And so that's the data that we used and that you have in your report, and that you'll see in operational expectation 4 when that's monitored in December. And so just kind of digging in, if our 1 year average is right around 80% and our 3 year retention average is around 63%, you can see there's a couple of groups within 1 year that are slightly below, or one group that is slightly below, and that's our 2 or more races. But generally, our staff are right around that 80% number. And then you can see percent remaining after 3 years. It's a little bit more disparate with a couple of our groups, particularly our Black African American and Hispanic Latino staff having a lower retention rate than the all category. And so that's just of note. That's information that we'll continue to pay attention to, because as we think about wanting to retain a diverse staff, if our staff of color are leaving at a higher rate than our other staff, then that actually creates a situation where we maintain the status quo. And so that's something we'll pay attention to. But there's more work to be done around these retention data, but really appreciate that the board asked for these data, because it is going to help us as we work through some of these targets.
Director La Liberty. Okay, Evan.
Okay. So it's not on the presentation itself, but in the actual OE, it does state that under Table 9, which is that first hiring diverse staff, that regular substitutes, long-term substitutes, and walk-on coaches are not included. While I do understand that there are some logistical issues with some of those hires, I do believe that, and this goes to a further point, one of our other measures of compliance relates to athletic and extracurricular participation. So if we are monitoring athletic and extracurricular participation in terms of diversity, but also not considering our coaches that are coaching those teams, I believe that might be an oversight. And I would like to see, if possible, that data collected in the future.
I'll check with the team on that.
Director Liberty?
That's not a question, it's a comment. I just want to highlight something from this OE that was not in the report, and that is that The segment of our staff that had the most room to grow, or most room to improve in terms of the diversity was the administration. And that's not unlike most organizations, where the closer you get to the top, the less diverse the organization is. But I do want to highlight that not only, well, yes, it was the segment of our staffing that had the most room for improvement, but it was also the segment that improved the most percentage-wise over the last few years. So I think that recognizes a concerted effort from throughout the organization to do that. So I just wanted to highlight that as something that that we do, we do hear a lot about for the community as well, and interest in not just diversity in our classrooms, but in the leadership of our district. And there is good work that's being done, and that is you can see that in the data.
I just had one errant thought as we were sitting here looking at some of this data. I know we looked if you look at the report, there's a section where we asked staff about their sense of belonging. And I am curious, just because we touched on the disparity between our grades 3 through 5 students versus our secondary students, if we separate our educators by those grades, do we see that same disparity in their responses to sense of belonging? So is there a correlation between the actual grade level, the actual building, right, our elementary schools versus our secondary schools, or is there not when it comes to our staff? Just a curiosity.
Yeah. We will document that curiosity and see what we can do with it.
Are there any other questions or concerns about 14.2? Okay.
Okay, 14.3 states to provide all students with equitable access to opportunities, including extracurricular activities and educational programs. You can see the indicators here kind of define what type of data would be presented to the board for compliance around decreasing levels of disproportionate participation, and then demonstrated use of student input regarding extracurricular and academic programs. And so just pulling a few of these, participation in programs and activities shows differences in levels of participation by race and other factors. It's interesting, we heard significant comment about that tonight, and one of the, I think, questions would be, are we using that data to then try and reduce opportunities for students? And as we were looking at these data, what it really compelled us to think about was, how do we make sure that all students understand, know, have access, have opportunity to participate? Because let's say like a highly capable program, students that qualify for that program receive placement into that program. That's the law, that's our policy, and that's what we do. But we also know that there's disproportionate or likelihood that students would participate in that program. And so it really does cause us to think about, are there barriers for some of our students and families? Are there some families that don't even know that that's an option for them? And so that's really what these data caused us to think about, was how do we make sure that our students know, have access to, and really feel that these are programs that they could benefit from and participate in. And so you can just see here, I pulled a few of the elements from this, and I think maybe there was 5 or 6 different areas that we were looking at disproportionality. And you can see under high school athletics that students from low-income households are significantly less likely to participate in high school sports. And I know we've done work around reducing barriers and things like that, but we know there's other life factors, family factors that may cause that, but that doesn't mean that we don't pay attention to that, to make sure that anything that we can do to afford opportunity to our students, that we do that. When we look at our highly capable programs, we see a number of student racial and ethnic groups, our Black African American, Hispanic, Latino, Native Hawaiian, and other Pacific Islander, and our white students. They actually have a relative rate index, which is the data that was reported to the board around likelihood of participation by any group, below 0.3. And we know that when a student group is at 1 or right around 1, then the likelihood of a student in that group participating in that program or activity is relatively likely. We also know that students from low-income households have a relative rate index of 0.1, meaning that significantly unlikely that our students from low-income households participate in highly capable programs. Students receiving special education services, you can see a relative rate index of 0.2. Again, it's about knowing and understanding these things so that we can make sure that barriers are taken down, information is provided, because we know that highly capable students run across all of our racial and ethnic groups, all of our other demographics that we look at. We know that we have multilingual students that are highly capable, and so ensuring that we consider those things and provide access to our students is important. Looking at our special education programs, this is an area where the state of Washington has actually identified Lake Washington as having significant disproportionality. Meaning that we are overqualifying students in certain racial and ethnic groups. And so making sure that we provide professional learning and education to our staff around the different makeups of students, be it multilingual students, be it students from different backgrounds, to ensure that our qualification processes are valid and reliable, and to make sure that we aren't providing students with special education services that don't need it, because essentially what we're saying is that we're identifying students that don't have a disability, saying they have a disability because of other factors. And so we aren't the only district that has significant disproportionality, but that is something that our team is working hard on, working around processes to make sure that as our guidance team are evaluating students, that they're making considerations that are more holistic as they go through that. Another data point around our special education programs, you can see there that our students from low-income households are significantly more likely to receive special education services. Again, these are just data that we are thinking about. It's the first time we've put the data together in this regard. We also know that dual credit course completion, there's disproportionality between our groups. And why is that an important element that the board adopted as an indicator? That really is because dual credit course completion really is an indicator of post-secondary success. That link has been made a number of different times. And so making sure that, again, our students and families understand the purpose and reason for dual credit, that they have access and opportunity, that if there's a fee associated with it, that if they can't pay for that, that there are opportunities for that. And so again, these are the data that we provided to the board. And but we also know there's other data sets that potentially could provide additional information for the board.
Director Stewart?
If we could go back to, it just flipped on my screen, okay. The highly capable programs and the students of low-income households. I'm trying to recall if the highly capable programs, is there special busing to those from all over the district? I didn't think there was, but I wanted to double check it, because I could see with a low income, that could be a real barrier.
Yes, so for our elementary and middle school Quest programs, there is transportation services provided.
Regardless of where they're living in the district then? Sorry, I'm just...
No, I'll have to follow up to make sure I'm providing you with specifically accurate information. I want to make sure that it's bus transportation from their home, not the school of residence.
Oh,
So I'll
okay.
follow up to make sure that we provide you with that
Just-
information.
I was just trying to figure out the barriers, and I could see transportation being one.
Evan?
Firstly, this is a clarifying question about highly capable, because it's been a very long time since I did those tests. In the current day, are we doing those tests in schools, or are we still doing them at a different center?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
But primarily, we do testing during the school day. That was actually a shift we made last year, and so our schools had to figure out, like, how do we actually do this within the construct of the school days with staff that we have. But primarily, that's done at the school site. Subsequent testing after that is typically done at a center.
Okay, thank you. And secondly, I apologize because this isn't exactly on our metrics, but I'd be remiss not to advocate for when it comes to high school athletics, our students with low-income households are significantly less likely. One of the reasons I have observed is our lack of after-school transportation, being a significant barrier in terms of both students in athletics and students in extracurriculars being able to participate.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anybody else? Director Carlson?
Sorry, I'm just, so after this, we're going to 14.4, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, during public comment this evening, we heard from an important community among our parents, and I want to acknowledge the passion of these parents on behalf of their children. I also want to acknowledge the courage of many of these parents in addressing the board, because given accents suggesting that many of these parents are immigrants who were potentially raised speaking another language. I do not speak another language well enough to speak to anyone in it, much less a board. I heard and understood several common themes from these parents, and I feel like this is the best time possible to speak back to that. The first was a concern that OE14 will lead to racial quotas or caps on enrollment in Quest. And the second was a confidence that our existing Quest screening system is entirely merit-based and fair and should not be modified. With regard to the first concern, I want to say clearly and explicitly to these parents that in more than 2 years of development of OE14, I have literally never heard anyone, not a board member, not an administrator, ever suggest the use of either quotas or caps. Speaking for myself, neither racial quotas nor racial caps would be unacceptable, even if it was proposed, which it has not been. With regard to the second concern, tinkering with Quest eligibility, the data here, students from low-income houses are almost absent from our highly capable program. For me, this is a major concern. I believe that low-income children can be gifted. I believe that multilingual learner children can be gifted. And I believe that SPED children can be gifted. There's even a term for it, twice exceptional. Mm-hmm. All of these groups are heavily underserved by our existing highly capable program. These are major concerns for me that justify tinkering with the system. I'm not talking about quotas or caps, but I am saying that when there are almost zero low-income children in our Quest program, there is still something wrong with the screening system of how we get the children to be identified and how we get them to participate in that. So this is speaking back to a community that expressed a lot of concern over one thing where I don't think it's a concern at all. Caps and quotas was never on the table, and if it does get put on the table by someone, I don't know who, I will be strongly against that. But the other piece is we do not have a perfectly fair and equitable system for identifying children for our Quest program. I believe, that's me speaking for myself, but I believe that very strongly. Thank you.
Shivani?
To add on to that statement, I have taken the COGAT Quest test when I was younger, and I do know that they do have like tutoring programs and stuff outside of school that basically teach you exactly what's on the test and how to get past those problems. And I think that also affects the fact that low-income students have almost no representation in the highly capable programs because they simply cannot afford the same kind of tutoring that people in higher incomes can. And I think that really affects this data, and I think there should be some kind of more fair testing that way, or there should be some kind of programs at school that can provide this kind of teaching at the school itself.
Director Carlson.
And thank you for reminding me one last piece of this. This is me just speaking as a father. I've got 3 sons. My last son is about to graduate. All 3 of my sons tested again and again and again for Quest and never qualified for Quest. All 3 of my sons were National Merit Commended Scholars in the top 2% of the nation on the PSAT. Our system does not fail children who are not in Quest. If you don't get into Quest, that does not mean that you are not going to be a successful student. That is something I hear again and again, that, oh my gosh, it's an opportunity that is, if I've missed that, I've failed. I've got 3 children who I strongly believe have not been failed by not being in the Quest system. Thank you.
Director La Liberty.
On the data for our highly capable programs, I do want to speak to that there remain large gaps in the relative rate. They have closed for many subgroups, and I think that does reflect some great work that's been going on in the district in terms of broadening the scope and identifying students who to ensure that students who are eligible are qualifying and are able to participate. And I know that there's been a lot of effort and a lot of work that's gone into it, a lot of thought in terms of not just of directly reaching out to students. And slowly but surely, I think we're getting closer to achieving what we want to.
To that point, a couple of the strategies new last year, actual specific outreach based on FastBridge results. And so it's not a screener, but it's the team used the data to say students above a certain threshold based on kind of analysis of prior data had a likelihood of being successful in the process. So they actually did specific outreach to families that otherwise may not have thought their child should participate in a qualification process. They also adopted and started using a nonverbal assessment. And for the life of me, I can't remember the name of that nonverbal, but that's another way of affording opportunity for students so that it isn't just a language-based assessment, but there's other ways of screening and evaluating.
President Bleasner.
Yeah, just to quickly respond to Dr. Holman, it's the Naglieri was the name of the assessment. I also wanted to say that I do strongly agree with Director Carlson in regards to specifically screening criteria and those components. This is something we've talked about for quite some time, and the work that's going into trying to ensure that does have a much more equitable approach and being able to go through. I'd also like to just highlight, and this is true on all of these, as we look at how we break out and we look for differences and look at those gaps, and these are to have questions for us and for staff to be able to say, where is it that we need to potentially do outreach or potentially change a system in the way that we're doing something in order to ensure that everybody has access to these things if they so want them. I do think of dual credit programs. There's been some great movement that I've seen. And there's lots of good examples actually nationwide of removing key barriers for students, fees being one of those, to be able to then be able to succeed within that area, or just even being asked if they want to take that class. So I do think there are systemic things that we need to do in which to be able to do this. I find this data very helpful in being able to provide opportunity for where those questions might be. The piece I don't see, and this I know in here you haven't collected that data, is there are in there the piece of doing focus groups with stakeholders to be able to dive into this data and ask some of these questions as well to determine what are those decisions that are going on with choice schools. For what reason are people choosing to go or not choosing to go so that we can better address those sorts of things. So I appreciate the goal is equitable access. It is not about quota nor ratio, and that has never been the conversation. So continuing that dialogue, I do believe, is important.
Evan?
I'll make it quick. So speaking as a student who did test, and I tested, it would have been either the 2009 or 2010 school year. I was, I believe, kindergarten. That year, the district decided to switch our testing. I'm not sure exactly the process at that point because I was a kindergartner. But I do distinctly remember that year, the district made a, not last minute, but close to the testing period decision to change the screening process and the screening test that we used that year. I believe that was the year we switched to the COGAT. And I distinctly remember showing up to that room and having parents there drilling their kids on the new test prep material of the new test because they had been tutored and prepped in a test that was no longer applicable to their screening process. So I can speak from personal experience that as much as I appreciate the fact that parents are willing to put in that extra effort for their children to be able to be put into this program, that extra effort is not equitable. And if we switch the testing, you will be sure to see that that happens.
Anyone else? Okay. I just wanted to say, actually, that I think that this is opportune that we just had the conversation with Director Ortega, and we were talking about family engagement and community engagement. And based off of the public comments that we've heard this evening, it really does. There does seem to be some sort of a miscommunication that has happened with this policy and the sub-policies and the interpretation of what is meant by addressing disproportionality within our system. And I'm wondering if there is some mechanism by which we can try to fix the miscommunication so that I think everybody would agree that we have the same goal in mind, and that is to help all of our students in the way that they need. If they need highly capable services, then they should receive highly capable services, regardless of who they are, where they come from. And so I do think that this might be a really good opportunity for us to go back and see where the wires got crossed. And I would like to reiterate that I agree with Director Carlson's points from earlier.
You know, one of the things that Director Ortega talked about was our mission and our vision, that it's for each and every student, and that there's students in our system today that actually don't have access to that. And that's really what this work is about. Another way that I would put it is, you know, I've worked in this district for a number of years, and striving towards excellence has been a consistent theme that I've experienced as a staff member, regardless of position. And I would contend that every student deserves to achieve excellence. And that really is what this work is about. Students achieving excellence so that when they leave our system, that they have every opportunity available to them. And so limiting students is not what this district is about. Limiting opportunities is not what this district is about. And so anything that points to that wouldn't be in alignment with our mission and our vision. That actually brings me to 14.4. Says the policy statement says ensure appropriately rigorous expectations for students and appropriate supports leading to student success. And if I had better skills, I would jump to the very last slide in the slide deck. But there's actually an indicator of compliance here that I'm going to propose the board reconsider because I'm not sure it truly aligns with the conversation, and I want to make sure that the indicators we're measuring actually are in alignment with our values and what we're wanting to accomplish. And it states, the second bullet point there under indicators of compliance, it states proportional representation of participation in programs such as highly capable special education, dual credit, choice school, and intervention programs. And so it's not about fixing it tonight, but I'm not sure that's exactly what we meant. This is a new policy. These are new indicators and interpretation. So there's bound to be things within this that we look at and we think maybe this wasn't exactly accurate. That's one I'm going to ask the board to reconsider in a future date, but that's you'll see that at the very end of the presentation. That's one of the policy pieces that I'm going to propose we discuss. So you can see 14.4 is rated not in compliance. Again, data being collected, processes being developed right now around this. Just a couple of reflections from this. The current indicators reference data from 14.3, that disproportionality data, which makes this overall policy component rated as not in compliance. The district, in terms of kind of that rigorous expectation component, the district has done extensive work related to the implementation of standards across the curriculum and continue to work towards more equitable instructional practices. MTSS, that the board knows and understands that is a key strategic effort, the multi-tiered systems of support. Part of that is ensuring equitable instruction occurs in all of our classrooms. It's a key factor in ensuring that students have access to rigorous expectations and academic experiences. Finally, evidence related to the indicators, both student and family reporting access under this policy component have not previously been collected, but that's part of the work in determining how we get that information to be able to report that type of data as part of monitoring of 14.4 in the future.
Director Carlson, did you have something for 14.4?
No, actually, 14.3 was quite enough. Thank you.
Okay. I was actually just going to mention that we have been talking a lot about access when we were talking about disproportionality, right? We want to eliminate barriers to access. And I'm realizing when we are looking at a lot of this data, in particular, the choice schools, whether or not you choose to put your child into a choice school is actually ultimately a decision outside of access. So I do believe that there is probably a step missing in some of our data because we're not actually truly measuring access. We're measuring, specifically for choice schools, we're measuring whether or not, one, a family got a lottery placement, and then two, ultimately made the decision to then enroll. So if they got the lottery placement, and if we looked at that data and saw that there wasn't any disproportionality, then you could make the argument that we have proportional access to the program. However, when we see disproportionality with the students that are subsequently enrolled, then there's a question of why are certain groups of families opting not to put their kids into a choice program? And so that's a very different question. And the data that we have right now, I don't think completely answers that. I forgot. I have to.
Sorry, go ahead.
Evan, go ahead.
So this is a comment about the superintendent interpretation. In here for 14.4, I interpret this to mean that all students demonstrating success are expected to meet or exceed state and local academic standards. I don't have the statistics for both state and local academic standards. However, on an initial glance, it does concern me slightly to include local academic standards in here for two reasons. Firstly, we are generally a high-achieving school district, so local academic standards might create an exceedingly high bar that makes some students feel as though they are not achieving. And secondly, if we are trying to exceed our local academic standards on a year-to-year basis as we are marking compliance, are we not just continually raising the bar higher and higher?
So I'd love to pose that as a question. How different are our local academic standards compared to the state?
Yeah, from time to time, there's kind of different ways to look at it. One is there are sets of standards for curriculum, and at times we either need to modify it or interpret it locally. There's a number of examples of which I won't get into all of them, but there's times where we actually have local work that we have to do, or there haven't been standards developed. And so we develop standards so that our teachers actually have a level of consistency across the district. Another academic standard that I could point to that actually now is consistent with state is we previously had a higher graduation credit requirement than what the state of Washington required. We're now in alignment with the state with a 24 credit, but that was previously an area that we would have had a different standard.
Director Carlson.
Sorry, I remembered one that I did not remember. This didn't strike me until this evening as I was looking at the data. In 14.3 and 14.4, when you're breaking out multilingual learners, I would like to have 3 categories: multilingual learners current, multilingual learners exited, and multilingual never. Because I would very much like to know what the performance in all of the places where we're studying that. And I know that that isn't going to happen this year. I'm just saying for next year, I'd like to see 3 categories.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Stewart.
I hear your concern about that second bullet about proportional representation. I'm trying to dig in my memory, which is usually a very dangerous thing to do, but it would seem that perhaps we were trying to address the subscription, if you will, of certain groups into special ed. And because going back to your statement earlier, and we're not the only district that has that problem, that's the only way I can see how that made it in, to be quite frank. So.
I don't think there's any more questions on 14.4. Nope. Nope, President Fleesner.
Thank you. In reading the policy, this might be that we just don't have the indicator there. It's ensure rigorous expectations for students and provide supports leading to student growth, success, and well-being. I don't see where we're looking at finding the supports or providing supports. That was the only question that I had as to something to consider going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Can I offer a response on that? Because one of the things I was sort of scratching my head about was, okay, so we say ensure rigorous expectations, then one of the indicators we have is participation in choice schools. So one way of thinking, okay, are we framing it as our choice schools are more rigorous than our neighborhood schools? I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's what we intend as a district. I also don't think that's correct framing. But I do think it potentially gets at the second component of that, of providing support, so differentiated learning for students. You can learn through a different lens at a choice school than you would at your neighborhood school. And so there's benefit to students to be able to access that. So anyway, that was my view of why that indicator, I think, makes sense for 14.4, but I was a wonder that I hadn't really thought about or vocalized until tonight.
Director Stewart?
Going back to Evan's statement about the kids who were able to be tutored prior to those testings, yeah, we've seen that for years. Where it always cropped up to me, not having a district to go to that had these kind of programs, but was the ACT and SAT. And it was always the kids on the Upper West Side of town, in my hometown, with multi-cars and multi-dollars that had the wherewithal to have tutors, and their performance was far better. On the wrong side of the tracks where I lived, we had average, but it got us through college, it got us in, and sometimes with the schools having more emphasis or less emphasis of the universities on SAT and ACT, perhaps that'll start to diminish that, but there's always that have and have not, that there's got to be a way around it, whether it's special tutoring in school prior to those exams, which to me I think is about the only answer. But I don't know if you can actually ever equal the intensity of that tutoring that you'll get in the private. Because again, it's going to be one-on-one probably in tutoring. So anyway.
Dr. Holman, would you like to continue?
Sure. So our next policy component, 14.5, states provide curriculum and instruction that is culturally responsive and inclusive, also providing for the social, emotional well-being of students. You can see our indicators here, a lot of reporting from our families, also referencing the OSPI screening tool. Again, at the end of the presentation, I think we may have misinterpreted the use of the OSPI screening tool, so I think we have some work to do to make sure that our indicator is actually in alignment with the tool and the usage of it, and so that's just work for us to do to make sure that what is being reported to the board is actually useful in terms of your monitoring of this. You'll see here the compliance rating is not able to rate compliance. That's just given the limited availability of data right now with reporting in the 23-24 school year as that work continues. And so just a couple of data points. As you know, there's the family data. It's coming from a single source data point, and so without the ability to conduct comparison and things like that. But of interest and of note, you can see that our Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, and 2 or more race ethnicity families report lower than the all family category in indicating that our schools value diversity. Where of interest, our Asian families report higher levels of agreement that staff value diversity. And so that's on a single data set that in that reporting. And then it should also be noted, because one of the questions is around culturally responsive instruction. And this actually isn't in the report, but as through conversation with our executive cabinet, one of the things that came out that we're going to actually start tracking is that through all of our new curriculum adoptions, we provide training on the materials, but we also embed culturally responsive instructional practices within the material training. And so that's just, it's another point where we have kind of that collective audience of all teachers that are going to use those curriculum resources. We also are embedding the types of instructional practices that we want to see done in our classrooms.
Any questions or comments? I actually have a question for the board, actually. Looking at this data for the first time, I am seeing instances of overlap when we look at indicators of compliance and the supporting data. And my question, and I really don't have an answer, or I'm not leaning one way or another, but I'm curious if that's valuable to us to see the same set of data to support different sub-policies or not support different sub-policies.
That's a very good question. And speaking as someone who absolutely hates seeing the same thing over and over, I don't like redundancy, but here's an interesting case where sometimes the same data speaks to 2 different things in different ways. It isn't actually measuring the same thing. And so I'm not as yet concerned about seeing things in a redundant way. But it is a very good thing to keep in mind as you look at these policies, because there's one thing I hate is seeing the same data over and over and over, trying to address this, different things. If we've written the policies in such a way that you have to show us the same data over and over, then we screwed up all of these things. But anyway, at present, yes, I'm aware there's a little bit of redundancy, but it's not enough that I'm getting worried. Siri, you've got a lot more experience in thinking hard about this stuff than I do.
President Bleasner,
If you have nothing to say, then you don't have to say anything.
you're muted.
No, that's okay. I just couldn't quite hear you. I have to make you cut in and out.
Sorry.
I would agree. At this point, I'm not as concerned about the repetition of data, and I think we will see where we can start taking things out or putting them in as we go through a little more.
Thank you.
There's also data that is reported in other operational expectations. I don't know if that's the redundancy you're referring to or redundancy within the report. Effective monitoring is the goal for the board because that's really how you are evaluating the system, ultimately me. And so it's important that you have the correct data. I also believe there's, even within OE14, we talk about professional learning a number of times in a number of different places, yet we have a policy component specific to professional learning. Like, those are things that we can potentially streamline so that the board is receiving all of that information in a single place as opposed to spread throughout the entire policy. Okay, 14.6. Okay, 14.6 states, ensure a highly qualified and diverse workforce through strategic recruitment, hiring, and retention practices. Again, this has a lot of overlap with OE4, personnel administration. And so some of the data that we've been working on for that report is also embedded in this policy as well. You'll see that 14.6 is rated as in compliance, but there are additional data that are being collected for future use as well. And so you'll see in the data on the next slide that there is a demonstrated increase in diversity of new hires. And we know to actually have system change, your input needs to be changing. We have the retention that we talked about, making sure that we're paying attention to that as well. Our HR team actually develops a recruiting plan that they develop and implement for each year. The recruiting requirements or needs actually changes on an annual basis. So they modify and update that depending on kind of the needs of the district. We have a number of strategies, not embedded in a formal plan, but I believe that will be an outcome as well. But strategies around formal retention practices that are in place as well. As the data set that I was referring to, you can see here, these are data for our new hires over time, and you can see that over the last 5 years that our new hires have been more increasingly diverse over time. In the report, it does break it down by administrative, certificated teaching, and classified positions as well.
I don't think there's any questions or comments.
Okay. All right, 14.7, ensure staff receive ongoing professional development to learn and put into practice equity, diversity, inclusion, cultural responsiveness, and anti-racism to increase awareness of personal bias and recognize systemic bias in inequities. So you can see the indicators of compliance there. At this time, it's not able to be rated. A number of the indicators of compliance aren't things that have been systemically collected, and so those practices are being put into place so that we can do that reporting next year. So things like staff perception around the value of training, but also the applicability of the training in the classroom, both things that the board provided in the indicators. And then you've heard of the state's equity and SEL training requirements. And so the data does demonstrate that we have implemented CCDEI trainings in accordance with state requirements. Year one, we provide equity training. Year two, we provide SEL training per this requirement. But it should be noted that embedded within both, equity work and SEL work are so combined that ensuring a sense of belonging, ensuring that students have a sense of safety, those are equity work. And so you would see a lot of equity and diversity training even within our SEL training as well.
I had one question on this one, and that was the portion of the sub-policy that says to put into practice equity, diversity, inclusion, cultural responsiveness. And the indicator of compliance that we had was that staff self-report using the training in the workplace and the classroom. And for the future, I'm wondering if we are missing a component, and that is student feedback or some sort of a, I don't know, for lack of a better word, a comparison to that self-reported data potentially. Not saying I don't trust our teachers. What my intent in saying that is, you know, people's understanding of what they're learning versus execution can differ, especially when something's new. And so it'd be interesting to see. Anyone else?
Okay, 14.8, incorporate diverse perspectives in district and school initiatives and decisions by implementing and maintaining effective partnerships and communication systems. You can see a robust set of indicators of compliance. Many of these data systems still being developed and practices being developed around these. So again, not able to rate this specific component. The data that we were able to report, one of the interest the board had was around our community being able to access and understand written communication. And that was, you know, good conversation, and we're in full agreement around that. So we set some metrics around, you know, how are we evaluating it's the Flesch Reading Ease test, which actually kind of rates the level of access and understanding of writing. And so you can see in the monitoring report, we actually demonstrated, you know, 60 was kind of our target. You can see that didn't hit that target a lot. We were closer to a different band of between 40 and 60, so just really above what we were targeting. And so I've also provided a brief for the board around some of the different, as we take written communication and to get it to a 60, at times there are just words that caused us to be in a different category. And so, but really it's about the interest of our community understanding communication easily, whether you're a native English speaker or if you have a preferred language or a first language other than English. I think the other thing to note is that the indicators of compliance currently state focus newsletters, and our focus newsletter is the newsletter that goes to our internal staff. The intent was to reference our Connections newsletter, which goes out to our community. And so that's the data that's being reported, and we'll clean that up for future monitoring.
Director Stewart.
Well, I applaud your efforts on the Flesch compliance. It's difficult to do. Once you're, especially if you've been steeped in higher education, once you get beyond a certain point, that becomes the language, to be quite frank. And I can't imagine any PhD dissertation being able to meet a Flesch standard. But that said, I think in addition to the meeting the Flesch standards, it's also the length or the order of the communication. I hark back to our weekly communications we had on COVID and new plans. And we'd get to about 6 pages, and then finally you'd get to the whodunit at the end. And that's great for a mystery, but for a paper, it would be very helpful. And I think, to be quite frank, you'd have more parents, one, getting the point, and two, then going on to the rest of the report, because they'd say, okay, gee, how did we come to that point? But to have it up front, I think would really heighten our parents' reading it, to be quite frank.
I think another aspect of communication is the tool Parent Square that we just adopted, that parents can receive and communicate in their preferred language. Like that, I think that is incredibly beneficial. We'll actually provide a report to the board this week around some of the data within the first month of use, and so that I'm excited to see that report as well.
Well, to be quite frank, I was really even looking at the folks who are English-speaking that have another clue as to how to speak another language, and it just wasn't quite clicking because they didn't want to stay till 10 pages.
Shivani?
I was wondering if you could clarify what the flush reading East test score kind of explains, because I was confused about what it's supposed to define. Because in the table that you do show, a lot of the values are really similar to each other. So I was wondering if you could clarify that kind of, like that metric, so it would be easier to understand the data.
And just because I've already Googled it, so the FRET, a 70 to 80 is about 8th grade reading level. A 60 is about 12th grade. And so we're slightly post-high school level. Basically 60 is USA Today. Easily understood by people who haven't been through college.
Yep, so that's the goal, is to have clear, better articulated communication. And at times communicating complex processes and topics. I mean, that's one of the challenges, and so, but the interest is definitely understood and shared, to communicate well and to be understood.
Yeah, I think I was just going to comment and say the example that you gave us in our weekly update, where you showed where the excerpt was rated at and then what it took to get to 60, how much you had to take out of that communication. And the end result was that it wasn't very informative. Ultimately, when we got to the level that we had set, if I had received that communication as a parent, it didn't give me actually much information to go off of. So there's this really interesting balancing act of trying to figure out, well, how can we make this understandable, but then at the same time actually useful and pertinent, what we're trying to communicate. So good luck.
but I think that's where the using an inverted pyramid style of writing, where you put the most important things up front and diminishing order, diminishing order, diminishing order. You don't have to attempt to get to a flesh standard that is going to be so difficult to attempt because it's such technical language. You go from the most important down to I don't really care at this point, which is yeah.
If we're trying to mimic USA Today, it's just pie charts, I think, is the it's the writing style.
Pie charts and graphs.
I don't know why I slandered USA Today. But.
I do it. Destroyed local newspapers.
President Fleisner.
I will say that I think as for some of the data points and those indicators that are missing for 14.8, such as positive response from our families in regards to the communication they're sharing, I think that will help to fill in some of those questions as to how that communication is best put forward. So I look forward to that additional information that's coming through to hear directly from people.
Okay, moving on to 14.9. States provide culturally responsive and safe methods to address concerns, grievances, or violations of this policy. You can see the indicators here rated as not able to be rated or indicated as not able to rate at this time. And really, why is that? We have processes and procedures to report discrimination, harassment, bullying, all of those things, yet the purpose of this policy is really about ensuring that we have culturally responsive methods to do so. And so I could have parroted back to you what our processes currently are, but as we think about making sure that they're culturally responsive, that's really the lens that this policy is looking through. And again, to be transparent, those processes are under development right now so that we can provide that to our community.
If you'd like to continue.
1410, collect, disaggregate, analyze, and utilize data to identify and address inequities. And so, again, not able to rate this due to a number of data elements still being needed, but a couple of things. Reporting that the board does consistently receive and has access to disaggregated data. All monitoring reports, both operational expectations and results are have been consistently reported that way. Consistent evidence of school and district administrators meeting with diverse stakeholders related to reviewing disaggregated data for decision making. We have not had a method to collect that. As Director Ortega was talking tonight about some of those pieces, it kind of cued me into some additional opportunities. So, but again, I think these are valuable things that we'll be working on. Okay, 1411, develop and maintain a culturally responsive system to
Sorry, President Blazner had a question.
You're way too fast, Dr. Holman. I apologize. I actually just wanted to highlight, the one piece I wanted to say is, I do believe that our district does a lot of very good work with the data, and to sort of highlight the work of our Tim Krieger and his team, in which to be able to have access to this data and be able to dive into it and be able to learn a lot and move things. So I just wanted to highlight that as a very strong point that we do utilize, and that you have highlighted actually in other conversations I've held with you, sort of how this has really helped to drive some of those conversations and help to inform the work. So just wanted to put that out.
Thank you.
Bless you. The final component, 1411 states, develop and maintain a culturally responsive system to analyze and allocate fiscal and human resources. You know, again, this is one of those, well, it's actually rated as not in compliance because this indicator is tied to outcomes related to 14.3 that demonstrates significant disproportionality in a number of student groups, but also within our graduation rates. You all know we have a process of managing our fiscal resources and allocating human resources. But again, I believe it's the culturally responsive element and layer to this that the work is being done in, and so that we can report that to the board. And so right now, it wouldn't be authentic to identify our processes as intentionally having a culturally responsive element to it.
I don't think we have, unless.
Comment. We have graduation rates as one of our indicators here. As I was going through this before, I had a hard time connecting that to the interest in the policy. I understand I can crudely get there. But also, the point of these, as you know, Dr. Holman, the point of these OEs are not results. We have results, one where we evaluate the system based on graduation rates. And that's not what we're trying to accomplish again here in OE 14. So I don't know, just a wonder of whether that is an indicator worth having as part of this OE 14.11.
So I think, unless anyone else has any more questions, I think this might be an opportune time for us to take a quick 5-minute break before we wrap up. Or would you like to say something, Director, Superintendent Holman?
Yes. I have two more slides, which I think are relevant.
Okay.
One of the responsibilities I have is to provide the board with a report and provide a rating that I believe is represented within this report. I think for a number of factors, this was not an easy report to be able to rate, particularly because this was monitored within 60 days of it being formally adopted, the indicators. And so there were many, many elements of data that weren't available. But I also didn't take lightly this rating of compliance, because the work of equity inclusion, as stated earlier, is some of the most important work that we do. And so my rating of compliance or not, I don't want to diminish that work, because this will be lifetime work. OE14, our work around this, because our commitment to each and every one of our students, having actual access to our systems, that our demographics don't actually predict the outcomes of our system. And that's what this work is about. And so I rated this in compliance with noted exceptions, knowing that there are noted exceptions throughout this entire report. And so that's what I have presented to the board. I wanted to just put voice to that, because I don't provide this lightly, but I believe there are some areas where we did provide ratings of, or evidence of compliance with a lot of work overall. My last slide, just as I've gone through, and I think there's some other areas that we've identified tonight that we just need to get back together and continue to do the work of this policy, be it the actual policy statements or indicators of compliance. 14.3, there's some potential other data sets for us to think about, because it's about the board having the right data to monitor the system. 14.4, I've already referenced. 14.5, that's the OSPI screening tool. 14.8, not 4.8, I promise. 14.8, 14.9, just some language that we didn't have not in 14.9, and I believe we were wanting to make sure we were addressing concerns. And then just overall, I think there's some consolidation that can be done and some data that we may want to place elsewhere. That is my report for this evening.
Dr. Liberty?
I move that the board approve the monitoring report for OE 14 as presented, as in compliance with the exceptions noted.
Second.
It has been moved by Director LaLiberty and seconded by Director Carlson that the board approve the monitoring report as in compliant with exceptions noted. All those in, yes.
There might be additional comment people want to make on the motion.
Are there any comments?
I see. I knew it.
Director, President Leeser.
So I am in favor of the way this has been put forward. I just want to say, granted, this is our first monitoring, so there are definitely gaps in which we look at this. There has been a lot of work and effort in which to be able to start moving this forward, and I think that needs to be recognized. I appreciate that the data is still being put into place for a variety of things. I look forward to the qualitative approach to sort of fill in some of these gaps. I appreciate the focus and work and being able to really look at those systemic things that might be creating barriers for our families and our students to be able to achieve and access what they are interested in being able to do. So appreciate the work that went in here and recognize that there is still much more work to do.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I wanted to also say that appreciate the comments Director Carlson made earlier today around around 14.3, and I share that sentiment in those comments. The purpose of this equity work is not to take away opportunities for students, it's to provide more students with opportunities. So thank you, Director Carlson, for that was very eloquently said earlier.
Okay. Do I have to repeat the motion? Okay. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. The board would like to commend the superintendent and his team on this very important achievement. We would like to take a 5-minute break, and after that, we will convene to go over OE10, Learning Environment and Treatment of Students. Okay. Now that we're back, we're going to move to the next item on the agenda, which is the reasonable interpretation, bless you, Siri, and indicators for OE10, Learning Environment and Treatment of Students. Dr. Holman?
Yes, and so as the board knows, as we work through policy, there's times where we need to update either the policy statements or the interpretation or indicators. And so Deputy Superintendent Matt Gillingham is here tonight to provide the board with an overview of some recommended interpretation and indicator changes. Given the scope of those changes, it was recommended that we put it on the agenda tonight for board action this evening, as opposed to doing a first reading and second reading, just given that they're important, but not something that the board would receive comment on or feedback on. And so, Matt, do you want to provide an update?
Yes, so as the board may remember, when we were presenting OE 10 back in, I believe it was on June 6th, we had indicated that we were monitoring some of our panorama data for this policy for the first time. And we essentially kind of had set what we thought was a reasonable benchmark, but weren't quite sure until we were getting into it. We also, as I would say, as a result of our work on R3, really engaged with Panorama much more intentionally around trying to understand what the data meant. And so we're bringing forward proposed changes in 3 areas to shift the Panorama data that's being used for this policy from varying from 80% favorable, 85% favorable to 90% favorable or neutral, which is similar to what we had in R3. We could break it out so that that as we did with R3, where you could see the percent favorable, percent neutral, and wanting to ensure essentially that we're saying that we want less than 10% unfavorable. But yet we're still framing that on the positive. One of the things, and I can't off the top of my head right now remember which one, but one of the indicators, we actually found that it would be very difficult. We were already in the 90th percentile for that, and it would be very difficult for us to essentially, we'd set a high bar that we may not necessarily be able to meet, and yet we could still have a lot of kids, we could be highly favorable and highly unfavorable, and so understanding kind of that neutral response would give us a more holistic picture. The other thing, the other change that's being brought forth is when we used to have attendance data, which is a state requirement that we monitor chronic absenteeism. That used to be embedded in R3, and so when we made that change to R3 and said that's not really an appropriate measure for the skills that we're looking as a result, that it would need to be embedded into an operational expectation 10. 10.2 seems to make the most sense because that's really a reflection of the school environment. And so we're proposing that 90% or more of students avoiding chronic absenteeism is an indicator that's reflected in this report.
Any questions or comments?
Just procedurally, so this is being brought to the board for approval tonight, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
I will now entertain a motion to approve the updates to the reasonable interpretation and indicators for OE 10 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
This seems pretty clean, cut and dried, so no.
It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director LaLiberty that the board approves the updates to the reasonable interpretation and indicators for OE 10. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. And the next item is the superintendent report. Dr. Holman.
Okay, at a request by the board, I'm bringing to you our spring SBA and WCAS results. That's our science assessment results. And it's being provided to you based on what is represented on the OSPI report card website. And our internal data system, we're still working to make sure that it's accurate within our system before I report out of it. And so that's why I went to OSPI. You may have seen Seattle Times report just a few weeks ago talking about the achievement data results in our region. And it was kind of cool to see that Lake Washington School District was the highest rated school district, the highest scoring school district in the region compared to neighboring districts. And that was a set of about 17 or 18 school districts in the region. I think that's a testament to a variety of stakeholders, from our staff to our families, and yes, our students, and the amazing work that they do. Our achievement levels, though, still aren't above pre-pandemic levels. And so that needs to be noted, and we need to continue to focus on that. And we also see in these data the persistent achievement gaps that we've seen for a number of years. And so these were the results that were reported in the Seattle Times. This is a compilation, and this isn't a way that we've packaged our results previously, but it's a way that OSPI actually is packaging the results in their data dashboard. And this is the results of all students that participated in ELA or that were within a grade band that participated in ELA. And so you can see here 78.5% of students were at or above standard on the assessment last spring, and that's grades 3 through 9 participating in ELA. Same grade bands with math. Over 70% of students achieving at grade level or higher. And then science, 62%. And there's a data anomaly with science because 11th grade students take the science assessment, but not many of them actually take the science assessment. And so our percent of students achieving at standard or higher at grade 11 is substantially lower than if all of our grade 11 students participated in that assessment. I see someone smiling over on the dais.
Pay them and they'll take it.
And so just as we look at the scores across the grade bands, you can see here achievement levels varying by grade, kind of climbing at elementary and ELA, dropping back down in 6th grade. These are typical patterns of scores, a little bit lower than we're typically used to, but you can see overall higher achievement. You can also see our math scores skewed a little bit, that 70% overall by our younger elementary students and their success rates. You can see here in science, 33.5% of our grade 11 students achieved at standard, but you can see over 70% of our grade 5 and grade 8 students achieved at standard or higher, and that's the whole grade level taking that assessment. Looking at our scores, how OSPI is reporting them based on gender, female, gender X, or male. You can see consistently, and this was actually something that we saw in OE14 tonight as well, our students that identify as gender X scoring lower than peers. We saw that in a sense of belonging as well, and so again, these are things to pay attention to as we do our work. You can see here reporting around race and ethnicity. Again, consistent success rates, which is also a cause for concern. And so we've seen these gaps previously and continue to focus on through our results processes and reporting in that regard as well. And this was, again, a screenshot, and so these are some of the packaging of data that we don't always share with the board. I thought it of interest from our English language learners to low income and non-low income. You can see disparities between groups, and those are areas that we want to continue focusing on and working on. Of note, our Section 504 and non-Section 504, there's actually a lower rate of difference between those two groups than some of our other groups as well. And so proud of the work that our district has done over the last few years. I don't think achievement results are an accident. I think it's, you think about the commitment that our staff made around remote teaching and learning. That was a huge effort. The effort that our students made to engage in remote teaching and learning, the opportunity for students to come back to in-person learning as early as they did and to the degree. And then last year, the significant challenges that really faced our entire community around staffing shortages and COVID and still being present very noticeably within our communities. And so it was quite pleasing to see those results and very proud of the system.
Thank you very much for that update. The next item on the agenda is Public and Community Affairs. Director Stewart, do you have anything to report?
Quick comment for John
Yes.
on that. I would be perfectly happy to never see those 11th grade science results again, because they've never meant anything, and it's a waste of all of our time.
Noted. Director
I want to see
Stewart.
my 11th grade science results either, before I break it.
I'll let OSPI know.
Okay. As far as public affairs and legislative affairs, this weekend, the Washington State School Directors Association met to look at legislative priorities. We participated not only in the overall conference, but also in the large school conference, or caucus rather. And it's always enlightening and in some ways kind of shocking to find unanimity in certain topics. And the one that rose to the very top with virtually every district was the need to improve funding for special ed. And it went across the board, from the small districts that had like 142 people in the entire district to us in Seattle. Anyway, I think that wraps it up.
Does anyone else have anything they would like to add? I was just going to mention that for the Lake Washington Schools Foundation, they have had a pretty big turnover of their board of directors this year and are having their first meeting this week, I believe, that I'm looking forward to. So more to report on that at the next meeting. Next item on the agenda is board comments. Director Stewart?
I also like to add my congratulations to Dr. Carlson here for his comment on the OE14. I was pleasantly surprised. I thank you very much. I saw you scribbling away madly for some time, and I was going, oh my goodness, what's going to come? Also, I would like to reach out and say to those of our students and families who will be observing Yom Kippur, I wish you a very easy fast. That's never easy, but I hope you have an easy one. Thank you.
Anyone else? Director LaLiberty?
Director Choi, A+ job stepping in and leading the meeting tonight. Appreciate you doing that. A lot of challenging conversations, and you did a wonderful job shepherding us through it. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much. That's very kind. Okay, if there are no other board comments or student representative comments for this evening, then the board will plan to meet on October 17th for the study session at 5 p.m., followed by board meeting at 7. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn the October 3rd, 2022 board meeting.
Second.
So moved.
It has been moved by Director Carlson and seconded by Director LaLiberty that we adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by voting aye.
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 All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. The meeting is now adjourned.
Good night, Siri.